are watching her with a bit of an annoyance on their faces, as they weren't interested in her fake story and just wanted to get it over with. A notification comes to Mango, and he gets a new skill called Earth Division and a new title of a witch hunter. He's really excited about it and thanks Rice for helping him complete this quest. Even the NPCs are now praising him, which really surprises him, as until now they just kept looking down on him. And as they were walking out, our protagonist noticed something strange. This is the first time that the stage didn't disappear once he cleared it. Marina's soul is still crying there, and even her body is still there. So he figures that there's more to it and goes back and sees the ring hanging around Marina's neck. The ring reads Elise, so he then goes to the weeping soul of Marina and asks her if the name Elise means anything to her. The ghost sharply looks sideways at him as with an intent to kill and repeats the name after him. The hidden quest then opens up, called Marina's Resentment. As Mango sees our protagonist next to the ghost, he calls him by his name, and then all of a sudden a huge blast of bluish energy starts pouring out of Marina's soul, and the ghost changes its shape. And then we learn that Elise was actually Marina's daughter that died due to the plague, and all of the monsters that they encountered during this quest were inspired by the things Elise loved: stuffed toys, crabs and shrimps. The ghost says that resentment she feels is because, as others had her to blame for the death of their children, she had nobody to blame, as she knew it was just a strike of misfortune, and that resentment grew over time. So we see that Marine started to become a witch because of all the pain she got from losing her daughter to the plague, and as she blamed herself, she couldn't even die in peace due to her resentment. Our protagonist's mission is to soothe Marina's soul so she doesn't turn into a real witch, and for this, the system notifies him he's got 60 minutes with the timer immediately counting down. And then, now this new evolved demon-looking version of Marina's soul starts flying up. Mango, seeing this, starts rushing towards her. Disregarding that Rice is shouting at him not to do it, he attacks her with his newly acquired skill, Earth Division, but she just catches it like it was nothing. And our protagonist is thinking of the way he can deal with the witch according to the quest. He's not sure what to do, and he can't even quit the quest, as he never got any option to either accept or reject the quest. But then he gets a notification telling him that he found a quest item. He's not sure what's going on as he looks around, and then his eyes meet some tomatoes lying on the floor, and he also sees basil right next to it, and then an idea comes to his mind, as that wall writing said something about his food, and so he's pretty sure what he needs to do now. And just a moment after, we see Rice down with his ingredients and cooking utensils out, getting ready to prepare some food. Meanwhile, Mango is figuring out why the witch keeps changing forms, with his NPCs saying their goodbyes as if they're all about to die, which makes Mango panic hard. He then notices Rice there peacefully cooking, and then NPCs start looking at him in bewilderment, as his behavior definitely doesn't match the situation they found themselves in right now. They're thinking if he's just cooking some extra Vav potions or what, and our protagonist is really deep into making this meal like he's got no worries in the world. He's peeling tomatoes, checking the temperature, and all the stuff he'd do without a deadly killer ghost which is trying to murder everyone in her sight. Mango is really confused and asks him, now in a bit of a panicky sort of voice, what's he doing? And Rice looks at him with intensity and asks him if he actually didn't notice what he's doing. Mango thinks that he's onto some other great plan, thinking just how awesome Rice is, but then our protagonist changes his expression and, to Mango's shocking disappointment, says that he's just making seafood tomato soup. So our protagonist is really working hard to make it in time, and just as he thought, this hidden quest and the reason why he kept seeing all of the ingredients around is because he was the only one that could notice Elise's presence. And as the timer was counting down, with mere seconds left, and as the now even more terrifying witch was approaching our protagonist, Rice adds finishing touches to his masterpiece food and extends the food to the witch, calmly telling her that he made something that Elise would enjoy. The demonic witch, close to completely losing her mind, stops right there before she reached Rice and inquisitively repeats Elise's name with a faint memory of her daughter in her mind. She withdraws herself from striking our protagonist and reaches for the soup, trying it just before the time runs out. The rage now turns to grief as she keeps eating the delicious food with tears streaming down her face. Then all of the memories with her daughter Elise start flooding in. She remembers how she used to cook with her and how much Elise loved this tomato soup. These memories coming back start changing Marina's soul, that she goes through another transformation, now looking like an angelic lady. She keeps apologizing to Elise for not being there with her and for taking so long for getting back to her. She gratefully thanks Rice and starts floating further into the air, telling him that she's now free to get back to her daughter in heaven as she's not a witch anymore. And then the light gathers up around her as if it's charging up, and she just beams into the night sky, making a hole in the cave. The notification pops up saying that the quest has been completed, and our protagonist gets a title of Marina's Savior, and he gets a bunch of rewards for it. Mango is really enthusiastic about finally getting this quest completed, and it turns out that our protagonist got a special magic ability as a reward from this quest. He's able to produce flames from his hand now, and playing with how he can use it, he manages to shoot a fireball from his hand, doing a pretty solid damage. Another magic ability that he got is a frost shield, which enables him to freeze the ground where he points the shield, and both of these powers have potential to grow much stronger with leveling them up. Mango is really ecstatic about it, saying that he didn't know that these hidden quests give such great rewards. The Rook then drops into the conversation and thanks them for saving them, and adds that they are actually not some random knights, but Count Beadley's knights. And if they ever come to Luvatran, they will be welcomed like heroes. And we also see that NPC's favorability of them grew again. The game says that thanks to Rice's actions, Marina let go of her grievance and went to the afterlife, where she might live long and happily with her beloved daughter. And this is all recorded in the game's book of history. In the book of history, we see that our protagonist hasn't completed any of the main stories and just did side quests so far. After going through his stats and the rewards he got, our protagonist decides to log off the game as he spent quite some time in there. And as he gets up from the bed, he feels pretty happy with himself, and even though it was really late, he decides to have some food to eat as he was hungry. Rice was surprised by how fast the food arrived, and he felt super lucky to have a place working 24/7 near him. The black bean noodles look really good, so he decides to do his best enjoying its texture at least. The first bite he thinks how the texture is pretty good. The second bite he starts thinking that they might have put in a bit too much onion in the sauce. And then he thinks to himself that the sweet smell is a bit too strong, and then it dawns onto him he can smell. He looks at the food again and is now in a visible shock. He doesn't understand how this happened. Was it just for a moment that he could smell it, or did he just hallucinate that he could smell it just because he wanted to smell it so bad? In the past, he did all the things possible to recover his senses, but without any success. So how is it possible that it just came to him now? He gives it another sniff and he realizes that it's not an illusion. He can actually smell the texture of the food, and it smells better than ever. His taste didn't come back, however, only smell. He then becomes really hopeful that with this there is a chance, no matter how small, for his sense of taste to recover as well. And now in the game Real, we can see Mango texting with other players, bragging about how he completed Marina's quest and how he's the only one able to do it. He tells them the details of how he did, as other people didn't believe him at first because they thought it was unbeatable. Mango tells them that he had Rice's help, and some other players immediately recognized him. Even Aether, now known as the master craftsman, mentions that he personally made equipment for him. And few other guys that he met at the beginning also mentioned knowing him, like Seekin. It seems our protagonist is getting really popular among the game players. These messages even reach Melina, as we now can see her real self, and it's Miri, and she's thinking what nice things she can write about him. She then says that she knew him back when he used to make chicken skewers and that he's a really good cook. We also learn that she's interested in him and is a bit upset that he doesn't call her on his adventures, and the only time she sees him is when he's making food. And Miri's grandpa enters, and we see that he's actually that chairman's son Jay, who was at our protagonist's restaurant. Bros, what is happening with this story? This story is getting so good, man. So he asks her how her part-time job goes, and she tells him that they don't have that many customers, and it's because their food is not the best. Her grandpa tells her that he recently ate food at some restaurant, meaning where Rice is a chef, and the food felt amazing even though he lost his appetite some time ago. He says that the food there retrieved some of his memories and was a full-blown experience that he just can't stop thinking about. This really interests Miri, and she wants him to take her there next time he has time, and he asks his granddaughter if she's working the day after because he needs her help with something. The next day we see them at her grandfather's company, where we learn that he's an artist, and this day is a day of an exhibition where he'll showcase his art, where he paints food that looks realistic and delicious. But one of his staff members tells him that they have a problem as the catering team got sick from food poisoning and he's got nobody to prepare him any food for his exhibition, which is terrible as looking at the paintings of food makes people hungry and him not having any food is awful. He gets really frustrated with this and then gets a call from Rice's restaurant owner and his longtime friend Lim Young, asking him how the things are going, as he was also planning on coming to this exhibition. Yu soon tells him about the situation, and Mr. Lim offers him his services for the day, which Miri's grandpa accepts gratefully as he desperately needs it. He then tells Miri that she's in luck, as the chef he told her about will be coming to their place to prepare food for them exclusively. He just needs to find two assistants, and as Miri is really ecstatic about finally trying the food that made her grandpa retrieve his desire for food, she says that she'll take care of the assistants and then calls one of her colleagues to help her out. She also starts thinking that maybe there is someone like Rice existing in real life and wonders who this chef is. And then outside we see Lim Young with our protagonist coming out of some fancy car, with Mr. Lim telling him that this is their first event before they open the restaurant officially, and Rice calmly tells him that he's all ready for it. We see Mr. Lim ask our protagonist if he feels nervous about this event, and we see that this wasn't Aram's first time doing this kind of an event, because he actually even starred in some cooking TV shows. The thing is that it's just been such a long time and he needs to get back into it. So he says that he's fine and he'll just think of it as a pre-opening test and he'll do his best. Meanwhile, inside the company, we see that Miri's colleague from the snack shop arrived, and Miri is really happy with her coming over to help her out. And at that moment, Mr. Lim walks in with Aram just behind him. Miri, seeing our protagonist, gets shocked as she didn't expect to see him there, so she then walks up to him, telling him that the last time they saw each other is when he abruptly left that snack shop. Her grandpa is really taken aback by seeing Miri knowing this chef. We can see that Aram feels a little bit awkward with the situation, so then asks Miri what she's doing there, and so she explains to him how she's here to support her grandpa's exhibition. Even Mr. Lim recognizes her, and now this makes Yu Soon feel slightly out of place, as everyone seems to know everyone. As Mr. Lim goes off to check the chicken and all other go their own ways, Miri is left with our protagonist, and she's kinda pouting at him. He starts apologizing for not letting her know that he found a new job, but she says that that's not why she's angry, and it's because he keeps calling her by her honorifics and that bothers her. She then offers him her pinky finger and asks him to promise her that he'll make her some good food and to take care of her. He returns the request and they seem really happy with that. After some time, we see people really enjoying the food, even the moody cook being all skeptical about the food in his usual fashion. After giving it a try, realizes how good the food is. He's having the usual transcendental experience for anyone trying our protagonist's food for the first time. It makes him do some really strange body movements that people start thinking that he's some sort of a weirdo, and I guess they're not wrong with that, bros. Anyways, a famous songwriter with a huge influence in the music industry, Jung Ji-woo, is also there enjoying Aram's tasty food. He says that this food almost inspired him to write a song right there on the spot. We also learn that he recently became the game Reels addict and is really into it. He then says that even though the food was great, he'll go to the in-game restaurant and get his fill there, not surprisingly at Rosalind's restaurant, and then he just runs off through the doors. And now at the snack shop, we see the owner drinking himself stupid and watching some cooking show where his favorite chef, Kang Sang-ye, lost to some unknown chef. And as he kept drinking and complaining how difficult it is to find good chefs and how his business is not doing well, he remembers the name of the competition his favorite chef lost, and then remembers that that's the same name that he found in our protagonist's resume. He gets absolutely shocked by finding this and is thinking that there's no way that this is the case. Now we go back to our protagonist, Miri and Uni, celebrating their successful workday at one of the local restaurants. Uni says that Aram did most of the work, which is why everything went well, but Aram resorts that he couldn't do it without their help, being humble as he usually is, and Miri praises Aram's cooking skills. And then they have gold pepperoni shrimp, and it looks really nice, so they want to take a picture of it. And as Miri and Uni were eating the food, our protagonist was just enjoying his newly retrieved sense of smell, taking deep sniffs of the food and figuring out what's inside. This made him look kinda strange to Miri though, and when he started eating, Miri just thought how unique it is for a person to be able to relish the food this much, as Aram was literally distinguishing between every ingredient in his mind, and he could even know how it was cooked just based on the smell. Then Uni interrupts his heavenly experience with food by asking him why was he an assistant if he's that good at cooking, and our protagonist finally reveals his secret of losing his senses due to an accident which made him close his own restaurant. He continues saying that he still can't taste anything, but adds that something really great happened recently, that his sense of smell came back to some degree of it. Uni and Miri are really happy about it, and he says that even if he couldn't smell or taste, he'd always be a chef as that's his life calling. And now we see our protagonist back in the game, walking towards the city of La Barton. A local with bushy eyebrows recognizes him there, saying that everything that happened in Marina's cave was already widely talked about. He then asks Rice what he's doing in this scrappy place, and our protagonist tells him that there's a story to this place and he's interested. According to the description of this small town, it's a land that lost its fertility due to the Demon King's power, and now the only way for them to get food is from the starvation relief cave, as they call it. Rice goes on to check reviews about the area of the game, and he notices that players are really negative about it, saying that there isn't much to do. He then runs into a comment saying that he can get a quest from an NPC with green hair. This gets Rice interested, so he heads towards the location where this NPC is. When he arrived, there was a green-headed guy sitting on the top of a spiky hill and telling him and the other players present there the instructions on how to enter the quest. Basically, there has to be a group of 10 of them to even start the quest, and they have to enter one by one. Their mission is to hunt the boss at the end of the cave. And right after the green-headed guy finished explaining the rules, the ground starts shaking and a cave comes from underneath the ground, the so-called cave of emptiness, that from the outside looks like an ogre with an open mouth. Before entering the cave, a notification pops up telling Rice that after defeating the boss called Giant Crop, the one who dealt the most damage to it will get all of the rewards. This is like a DPS check where only the first guy gets the rewards. Kinda unfair, to be honest. But anyways, back to the story. The green-headed guy then, in a smug way, says that rather than checking every nook and cranny, they should be focusing on seeing the bigger picture, which kinda sounds like a puzzle. In the meantime, we see Miri texting with Uni, and they're talking about our protagonist, saying how cool he is to have such a strong will to continue cooking even with losing his senses. They comment on how great of a chef he is, but at the same time that he's really quiet. Uni teases teasingly suggests that Miri might be romantically interested in him, and Miri pretends that she's not into him, saying that he's boring as he does nothing else but cooks. But we all know better, and we see her then texting our protagonist, inviting him out for a date. Now we go back in the game, and Rice's party enters the cave, discussing how they should split the rewards, and one of the guys reminds them that it's a battle royale where only the final man standing gets the rewards. And they keep on talking until they come to a bridge, which is a checkpoint, as the guy imposing himself as the leader recognizes. And at the other end of the bridge, there is just a well-lit wall, so one of them thinks that this is where they will encounter the boss. But as soon as the last of them steps on the fragile looking bridge, the bridge just crumbles below them and they fall down, shouting that they should have expected it. Luckily, they end up falling in the water, which saves them. And as Rice steps out of the water, he sees a plant called Aruguala, and like a child playing with its toy, our protagonist gets really occupied with it, thinking how awesome the dedication to details in this game is. The shared notification pops up telling them that they've picked up Argola. I don't know, bros, how to pronounce this. I'm sorry. This is the constant struggle with not be an English word pronunciation. You just have to get used to it. Anyways, after they picked up Argola, the leader guy seeing it tells them not to pick up some random strange stuff they come across. Then just a moment later, one of the guy gets hit by a potato monster, and this guy hits like a tank as he knocks down one of them with just one hit. The guy laying on the floor then looks towards them and asks for the healing potion, but to all of their shock, he gets hit again on the head, instantly getting eliminated. The potato monster is nothing to be joked around with, even if they do look kinda silly. But more interestingly, when that player died, some of his personal items ended up in their shared inventory, which they realize means that there's quite a significant loss if they die here while doing this quest. So the leader guy tells them to get ready and attack on his command, and then more potato monsters show up. The party charges at them, but without much success, as these monsters are pretty hard. We see that even our protagonist is having issues with them, with his pet Meow having to come out from time to time to help him out. The whitehead leader guy then tells them to slowly move in one direction as they fight, as he found a way to go back up. And while they were backing up, two new enemies show up, Carrot Wizard and Corn Swordsman. The leader guy thinks that the names in the game are silly and wonders what game developers were thinking when they named them. Then the leader engages them in the battle, and they are significantly more threatening than the potato monster. The wizard carrot fires a red beam, distracting the leader guy, while the Corn Swordsman charges at him with full speed. But the white-haired guy is pretty strong, and he defends it without too much effort, and then chops down the corn monster. He seems to be getting really serious as he powers himself up, and our protagonist, with pure sincerity, enthusiastically tells them that he'll pick up all the corn that they drop. Classic. So after a little bit of time passes, we now see the party taking a break, successfully surviving that attack from the vegetable gang, and the food they are eating is actually Rice's food that they got from the restaurant. They eat his food while discussing him, saying that he did really well in the game and he even owns his own restaurant. They say that it's all thanks to him that the food improved by a lot in the entire game, and they can actually look forward towards food. Before him, they had to deal with the food like the bland soup and other untasty things. All these compliments make our protagonist really happy, as he's blissfully and innocently eating his beef jerky he had saved from before, looking as goofy as ever. One of the guys wonders what Rice looks like, while Rice is ironically sitting next to them, but they don't know that this is him. Some people say that they can't imagine Rice playing with them, as he's probably part of some high-tier party. The leader quietly eats his food and then suddenly gets up, throws it on the ground, and tells them that they need to get a move on if they are properly rested, as they still have a long way to go. And as they continue their journey deeper into the quest, they come to a place that some of them find familiar. It's a big cave with an opening on the very top, brightly shining light on a spot where the axe sits on top of an elevated ground, and above it says it's called Best Warrior Mango, which makes Rice think that this level has already been been beaten by his friend Mango. And right as they were figuring out what's happening there, the ground starts shaking and the elevated land started to go up and up until we could see a massive stone-looking monster that turns out to be the boss, Giant Crop. The leader, seeing this, tells him to get ready for the battle, and as he comes up with a plan, he tells the ranged warriors to aim for the monster's arms and legs, while the melee warriors and tanks should attack the body and head. And our protagonist is just casually eating his chicken skewers, looking as if he's not really worried about any of this. And the food he eats top up his skills and he gets some new upgrades. The food really does wonders in this game, bros. The huge rock monster swings with such force and they are barely able to evade its attack, and then the leader, whose name we now learn to be Aegis, seemingly very annoyed, leaps up with an incredible speed and power and slams Giant Crop exactly in the head, making it look like he did huge damage and might have even taken the monster down. But to their shock, the stone giant just slams Aegis down with one hand and without giving it any time sends another devastating blow down at him. Aegis starts panicking as he knows that he can't escape this massive blow, and if he gets hit by it, it'll be game over for him. And right when he thought that nothing could be done, we see our protagonist in the air sliding down the giant's arm using his new ability Frosty Shield, freezing the entire arm of the massive stone beast and in that way preventing him to hit Aegis. The stone giant's head comes to a halt right before he touches him. The Rice uses his ability Focus Tip to try sending one final blow to the now unmoving monster. Everyone is left in utter shock seeing our protagonist perform this well. It's also their first time seeing someone actually using magic in the game. One of them says that he ignored Rice as he was just quietly picking herbs and following them around without contributing anything, but now he seems to be a high tier fighter. And as the stone giant was standing still, our protagonist assessed that the monster did receive damage, but that it wasn't a critical hit. Injured Aegis then shouts to the other party members to shoot at the monster as it's almost finished. And as he sees them not actually moving, he calls them cowards, and right in that moment he gets picked up by that monster and is now in the stone giant's fist. The monster then uses Aegis as a shield and throws a punch at our protagonist. Rice just points his blade at the monster in a very confident way and produces flames from the blade and then shoots out a fireball from it. Aegis is in disbelief about what's happening to him, panicking and thinking that he'll die. He does end up getting shot by the flame along with the monster, which our protagonist uses as a distraction to find the stone giant's weak point and charges for a finishing blow, concentrating his whole power at the tip of his blade. Others in shock see Rice winning against this powerful monster and can't believe what they just witnessed. They're now more than before curious as to who our protagonist actually is. A notification comes up that the person doing the most damage gets all of the loot and that the famine relief cave quest has been completed. Then, as our protagonist is helping Aegis to get up, they see the name on the elevated ground change to the name of the best warrior, and that is Rice. People are astonished to learn this, as the person who is able to cook so well is also a great fighter. Aegis is just looking at him in shock without saying anything. Rice seems to be getting a little bit nervous when people learn who he is. The notification comes up telling him that he got another achievement unlocked, which enables him to decrease bosses' HP by 40% with just one blow. Then one of the guys says that Aegis was ordering them around, but at the end of it, he was just a weak loser that couldn't get things done when it mattered. And this really enrages Aegis, so then they have a back and forth argument until Aegis gets so furious that he hits the other player with his club, instantly murdering him right on the spot. Everyone was stunned and speechless seeing this, and a warning notification comes that he killed the player and he's getting a penalty for it. And by what Aegis says next, we learn that this is not the first time he did something like this. Rice, seeing this, thinks to himself that this guy's out of his mind. Like, why would he murder another player just for a little insult? And sometimes after, we see our protagonist calling for Fertile, which is that green-haired guy sitting on top of a rock. Fertile seemed to have been really bored until he saw our protagonist. Rice tells him that he cleared his quest and that he also has found a pickaxe inside, and he thought that it might be Fertile's pickaxe, so he came to return it back to him. Fertile tells him that he was looking for the pickaxe for a really long time but couldn't find it anywhere. Rice tells him that it was just stuck on the golem's head and that he's happy to give it back to him. Fertile mentions that the boss they fought wasn't a golem, but then changes the topic as if it's a long and complex story for him to explain right there and then. He then tells Rice that he'll be cheering for him from now on for the rest of his journey, and slips in an enigmatic advice that in whatever dungeon he finds himself in, he should always take care of bigger mobs over the small fries. They thank each other, and then all of a sudden, Fertile jumps off of that rock hill, swinging his pickaxe really hard, and as soon as he's on the ground, he hits the ground with it, piercing the surface a little and immediately causing the lush greenery to start bursting out of the soil, first around where he is and then quickly spreading throughout the entire land, and I guess that's why his name is like this. All the barren land now gets covered with plants, trees and flowers that are magically popping out from the ground. Then the notification comes up saying that the once abundant plains were reduced to a wasteland due to the devil's powers, and thanks to the guardian angel Fertile finding his pickaxe, the earth once again regains its green glow. Rice also gets some more achievements unlocked that have to do with the history book. He also gets a new title as well as one who walks the first. Then we now see the history book being updated again with another successfully cleared mission by our protagonist, and he's wondering why is it being updated when he's not doing any main quests at all. He doesn't quite understand how this history book works yet, and as he's shaving a bit of time with his pet Meow, he gets called from the foot of the hill, and it's the Macho King guy. Macho King is getting a bit too personal for our protagonist's taste, especially since he doesn't actually know him that well. He's calling Rice to calm down and to join his party, but we can see that Rice, even though being polite, doesn't really feel that great joining him or even having this conversation at all. Rice jumps from that tall hill, and Macho King is really impressed, telling him that he's got ankles made of steel. And Rice asks him if he's also going to Bedran, and Macho King confirms, saying that he saw him here on his way to Bedran. A bit later, as they were heading towards Bedran, they discuss their occupation, and we learn that for some very strange reason, Macho King thought that being a farmer means being cool and strong, which is why he chose his occupation, while Rice just likes to cook. The guy keeps acting all familiar with our protagonist, which makes Rice feel really uncomfortable and easy. They then run into a restaurant called Atelier, and Macho King suggests that they should go in and continue their awesome conversation over some delicious food. But when they get in, they are greeted by a sad looking chef telling them that the restaurant only has vegetables to offer them, and then tells the usual story of the land, that it's because of the Demon King that they have nothing better to offer. Rice is fine with it as he innocently approves of the vegetables, but Macho King, with completely different energy, angrily tells the chef about how he won't be able to bulk up on just vegetables and he needs some good quality meat. And after they settled and sat down, they get a notification where Rice got a friend's request for a co-op occupation quest. Macho King is really hype about it and sees this as a perfect opportunity for two of them to do it together, but our protagonist, not really listening to him, says that he also finds this interesting, and then says that he just needs to look through his friends list and see who is available for this, and then enthusiastically turns to Macho King to ask him if he has any friends that he can do this quest with. But after seeing this, Macho King just signs off of the game. My guy got ignored hard. This reminds me like when you ask a girl, hey, can I get out of the friend zone? And she's like, blah, blah, blah. Completely changes the subject. She doesn't even recognize the question, so she can keep you in the friend zone forever. That's why, bros, If you realize you're in the friend zone, just stop talking with the girl. Now, we see nervous Mr. Lim worrying about whether he should have advertised more about his opening day, which is today. He then asks our protagonist, who was sitting and watching some cooking instructions on his phone, if they have enough watermelons to make watermelon punch. And as they were discussing watermelons, Aram receives a phone call from Miri, and then she tells him that they want to have a company dinner at their restaurant for the opening day. He lets the boss know that Miri and her colleagues are coming as the first guests of the restaurant, and the boss seems pretty happy with it. However, Aram is not too excited about it, as that means that moody chef Kim Dae-won will also come over as well. And later that day, we see Miri and the rest of the snack shop guys show up for the business dinner. Mr. Lim asks Miri about you soon, and she hands him the flowers, as it's a tradition to give flowers for business openings. The snack shop owner is really impressed by how the interior of the restaurant looks. And as they sit themselves down, Miri and Uni are really ecstatic about eating our protagonist's food, and at this point, who wouldn't be? And they're just listing all the stuff they wanna eat and how it would taste. And we see Aram lost in his thoughts as he's making food, feeling a bit uneasy about him having to encounter that egoistic chef. Once the food was made and served, they all relished the food's taste, giving it the highest praise, with the only exception of Dae-won, who also compliments it but pretends that he knows what he's talking about in assessing our protagonist's cooking. Miri, knowing that he's talking nonsense, makes several sarcastic remarks telling him how good of a chef he is, and that their snack bar is just lucky to have him as a head chef. The guy is so egoistic, bros, that he doesn't even recognize that she's trolling him and just accepts the over-the-top compliments. And then as they all ate, Dae-won calls for some drinks, even though he previously told his girlfriend that he wouldn't drink, so they kinda scold him for that, but he doesn't seem bothered at all. Mr. Lim then tells them that he's happy that they enjoyed the food, and as they gave such high praises for the food, and as today was their opening day, he wants to personally introduce the chef to them. Everyone seems excited about it. Even the moody chef says that ever since the exhibition, he wanted to meet this talented chef, as master recognizes another master according to his words. And then our protagonist walks out in front of them and calmly tells Dae-won that it's been a while. Dae-won is lost for words as he stares him in disbelief, trying to figure out what's going on. Why is Aram here pretending to be the head chef of this restaurant? And as he's wondering how this could be, with visible dissatisfaction on his face, Aram's previous boss is also left in disbelief, as he just realizes that Aram was their assistant chef and is now working as a main chef in this fancy restaurant. Miri then starts praising Aram to tease Dae-won a little bit, as she comments how Aram used to be the head chef at a really big restaurant before, but Dae-won, being mature as he usually is, comments how if he has no proof, then he doesn't believe him. This childish behavior surprises Aram, as Dae-won doubles down on it, asking for proof, as he starts shaming Aram and saying how, if he was a good person, he wouldn't work a part-time job in a snack shop and then quit at the smallest inconvenience. And what he means by this smallest inconvenience, bros, is him bullying Aram constantly, as he now also goes back to bullying Aram, calling him just an assistant chef, leaving Aram surprised as he can't believe this guy is so immature, as Dae-won continues saying how Aram's such a good chef that they have no customers in this restaurant, as Miri yells at him to stop, and he just ignores her and continues bullying Aram, saying how the noodles he just ate were decent, but how anyone can cook decent noodles and how that doesn't make him a special cook. Miri now loses her cool and starts yelling at Dae-won and asks him if he got drunk already and is behaving like this because he's under the influence, but Dae-won just still keeps going, saying how Aram ran away from their snack shop and was lucky to get a position as a head chef in this restaurant, as we see Aram now getting more and more angry, as he comments how he never ran away quickly, and he even apologizes for quitting so suddenly, as he explains how he never bragged about his past to them before or acted as if he's better than them because of it. And Daewon interrupts him, telling him to shut up, as he comments how Aram was just his assistant and nothing more. He continues insulting Aram, and we see Aram clenching his fist in anger as he tells Daewon that he's acting like this because Daewon also truly knows that Aram is a better cook, and this takes Daewon back a bit, as he didn't expect to hear anything from Aram, as he then spits in the plate, saying how these noodles are nothing to brag about, and starts yelling and insulting Aram more, as we see a fist flying towards him, and we learn that it's not actually Aram who's getting angry, but his boss, who slammed the fist on the table with such force that Daewon immediately stopped talking and got scared. He then asks Daewon to leave, as Daewon comments how you can't behave like that towards a customer, and as Aram is looking at this surprised as well, his boss comments how Daewon is not a customer, because a customer wouldn't constantly insult the head chef like that and even spit in the food, as he comments how Daewon has no manners and orders him to immediately go out. We see Aram now apologizing to his boss for this situation, as his boss responds by saying that this is not his fault, and as Miri and her friends are leaving, they apologize for Daewon's behavior as they say goodbye, letting them know that despite this situation that just happened between them, they really had a good time and enjoyed their meals. We see Aram and his boss happily waving to them as well, and as soon as they leave, they exhale in relief, as the boss comments how he couldn't ask them to pay after kicking them out basically, and Aram asks his boss if his hand is okay after that punch. His boss comments how his hand is fine, and how Daewon's bad behavior really provoked him so much to the point of slamming his hand on the table. And his boss is praising Aram, saying how besides being a good chef, he's a really patient and tolerant person, because it must have been hell working as Daewon's assistant. Aram promises how he'll do his best here because he has such a good boss now. After coming home that night, Aram logs in the game, and if you remember, bros, when he last logged out, the area he was in was like a desert area, but now it's so green and there's even a forest here, all because that guy whose name is Fertile uses pickaxe to make the green life come back to this area. As Rice is thinking how the area looks really nice, he sees another player calling for him, as he seems to be hiding behind a tree for some suspicious reason, and as Rice comes closer, this guy says that he's looking for someone to help him hunt the small cows as he needs the XP, and Rice asks him if these small cows drop beef, and this guy says that they definitely do, saying how Rice can keep all the loot they drop since he only needs experience. Rice, a little bit confused, asks where the small cow is, and as he turns around, he gets hit in the back of his head, immediately falling down on the floor, as he's left stunned by the back attack and can't move now, and he hears a voice saying how it's good to see him again. And as Rice looks up, he sees Aegis and his party, as Aegis comments how he did say they will meet again, right? Aegis is surprised that Rice remembers him, as he comments how even though he was the tank on their last quest, he got no experience points for doing it because only the winner of that quest got all the rewards, as Aegis comments how can a guy like Rice who managed to win at that quest fall for a trap like this one right now. As the guy that debated Rice starts running away, Rice takes another look at him while Aegis continues taunting him, you know, because he's a tank and he's taunting him. Okay, I'll see myself out. Actually, I won't see myself out, this joke is good, bros. Anyways, one of the guys in the party comments that Rice is a good cook, so he can come with them to cook food for them, as the girl also comments how this is a great idea and that Rice should definitely do it, and Aegis comments how he can definitely come with them, but they aren't following no grief rules and are actually killing other players and taking their loot. As Rice slowly stands up and takes out his sword, he comments how he isn't interested in their offer, and they respond by saying it's either that he comes with them or they kill him right now and loot his body. The girl also laughs at Rice, saying how he's trying to act nice, but he definitely isn't, since he had no problem that they didn't receive any rewards for the last quest when he he took all the rewards. And in the middle of her sentence, she gets hit immediately dying as both Aegis and Rice look to see what happened, and Rice gets surprised as he sees that gourmet guy that eats raw meat in the back, and he is the one who killed this girl. This guy comments how this girl is even weaker than he thought, saying that the rest of the party isn't much stronger either, besides the silver-haired guy. Aegis then yells at this guy, asking who he is, as this guy is just slowly approaching Aegis and Rice without saying anything. Rice thinks how he's seen him before and wonders what he is doing here right now. Aegis continues yelling at him, asking him how could he kill his partner member like that, and asking him if he actually wants to join his party because he doesn't have a problem with griefing other players as well. This guy continues ignoring Aegis as he's still walking towards him, and this annoys Aegis to the point of actually starting to attack this guy, and as he jumps towards the mysterious guy and swings his mace at him, this guy just catches it with his bare hands, then holds it with a grip so tight that Aegis can't pull it out at all, as he lifts Aegis up while still holding the pointy end of the mace, and then slams him down to the ground, almost killing him. And the only reason Aegis actually didn't die from one hit is because his class is of tank in this game, so he has a little bit more HP than usual. Rice is looking at them completely surprised as he realizes how strong this guy actually is, as we see him charging his fist and getting ready to finish Aegis off, and Aegis starts begging for mercy, but this guy completely ignores him yet again and slams his fist down Aegis' throat, causing so much damage that even Aegis as a tank couldn't survive it. This guy then takes his bloodied fist out of Aegis' smashed head and comments how Aegis is also weaker than expected, as he turns over to our protagonist asking if he is Rice, and as Rice thanks him for saving him, he confirms that he is. This guy then gets all up in Rice's face, saying how he did just save him now, and Rice, a bit startled with a gulp in his voice, answers how indeed he did. This guy then takes something out of his inventory and slams 2 giant steaks on the ground, telling Rice how this is actually small cow meat, and if this is small cow's meat, I wanna see how big is the meat of big cows. Oh, sassy sentence. Anyways, back to the story. This guy's asking Rice to cook this meat for him as a token of gratitude for saving him. This leaves Rice confused, but he decides to cook it, and after the meal is finished, we see a delicious dish called Tasty Galbi Jim. Yet another made up word in my dictionary, as we also learn that this meal increases satisfaction in both attack and defense after being consumed. Rice offers it to this guy, and he looks at it closer and inspects it, realizing that it is true that after you cook raw meat, it gives more stats than when it's raw, and he tells Rice how Rice also has a fraudulent occupation. Rice also decides to give it a try as he takes a part of it with his chopsticks, and after going in for a bite, he is left in that familiar, blissful state people are usually left in after trying his food, as Rice thinks how it's been so long since he last tried this meal. This guy is still not eating and just looking at a piece of this cooked meat, but after going for a bite, he also goes through a heavenly experience after tasting it, as a notification pops up letting him know his stats have just increased. He compliments Rice's cooking, as we see nothing was left on the bones how well the meat was cooked. Rice comments how they can even eat the leftover soup of the meat, and he decides to mix it with rice for extra flavor. Rice enjoys preparing all this food, but while he's doing it, he wonders who could this guy actually be and why did he help him in the first place, thinking that this guy is maybe following him, but he has no time to think about it right now, as the next meal is ready and both of them start eating it. We see this guy in a magical land of wonders with food flying through the air, as he's so happy he got to taste Rice's food, and he's glad he helped him so Rice would cook for him in return. He compliments Rice's food again and comments how his absorption skills were also filled, and Rice, with his mouth full of food, asks what are absorption skills, But this guy just casually ignores him and asks if he could add Rice as a friend. Rice says how he can and thinks how he seems like a really nice guy, so it's fine, but usually he wouldn't accept his friend request. The guy offers Rice a spirit fruit now as a gift for their new friendship, and we learn that this fruit is eaten by spirits and could lead to death if other creatures try it. Rice asks him where he obtained this item, as he comments it was a reward for an achievement he completed earlier, and how he doesn't need it since he can't eat it. Wow, such a thoughtful gift. I can't eat this poisonous fruit, so I give it to you as a gift. Very considerate of him. However, Rice takes it and thinks how maybe he could cook it later in a way that wouldn't be harmful to him. As this guy is leaving, he comments how next time they meet, Rice doesn't have to use honorifics when speaking to him, and he looks hella fine, bros, as we learn that his name is Epicure, and he comments how friends don't need to use honorifics when talking to each other. Rice also waves back at him as he wonders why his name is Epicure, which is a fancy word for gourmet, I guess. Gourmet? I don't know how to pronounce words in English, bros. Sorry. Now, a little bit of time passes and we see Aether selling his items in a town as he gets a party invite from Rice, and we also see Macho King getting the same invite while he was plowing some earth, but comments how he'll definitely join Rice's party. Three of them meet in front of a market in a town as Rice greets them and thanks them for coming, as Macho King says he'll do anything for his bro Rice, like I'll do anything for my bros. Like, bros, if you ever need help killing some dragons, hit a bro up. Aether also greets Rice and asks who Macho King is, as he looks like a regular farmer, and Macho King laughs and answers how he's Rice's best young bro, and then two of them introduce each other, each bragging by being Rice's friend. And three of them now decide to do a co-op quest together where they need to collect 100 peaceful trees and then use those to create a peaceful fence, and then catch and bring 50 livestock behind this fence, basically making a small farm. Rice then shares this quest with them as Aether comments how this quest isn't available for all classes but certain few, and Macho Man also comments saying how he wanted to do this quest before but something suddenly came up in real life, so he had to log out and couldn't do it, but he's ready to complete it now. Rice comments how three of them have the required occupations for completing the quest, as Macho Man, in his usual fanaticism over Rice, comments how he can't wait to get started, and Aether comments that this quest should be fairly easy since it's basically just making a wooden fence, as he also comments saying how three of them can split up and each of them can complete a different part of the quest, thus saving time and finishing it faster. Macho Man hugs Rice and says how there's no way he's splitting up from Rice because he likes hanging out with his bro, but Rice tells him how Aether's idea is actually really good since they can do it much faster this way if they split up. Now Macho King is in charge of finding the peaceful trees and chopping them up and then provide them to Aether so he can start making the fence while Macho King is gathering more wood. And Aether asks Rice how is he planning on bringing back the livestock. Rice responds how he has a very special idea planned, as we see him a bit later starting a fight with the cows as he uses his ability Focus Tip to charge at them. Now we see Rice in action, attacking the cows head on as they are rushing towards him, and he's doing pretty well, defeating several with one swing of his sword. It's a bit intense as our protagonist just wants to get this over with as quickly as he can, so he uses all of the tricks up his sleeve. After some time hunting the little cows, a notification pops up telling him that an achievement called The Massacre has been unlocked, where he had to hunt over 1,000 monsters to be able to obtain this achievement. And so, the two new skills activate, Slasher and Slayer. and Rice is pretty happy with it as he's already finished the cows. And then all of a sudden he saw a sheep just casually passing by, so Rice then figures that this has to be one of the livestock he's supposed to bring back with him to the farm. So without much thinking, he leaps to catch it, but the sheep just slips away as if it just teleported, leaving our protagonist wondering as to what's going on. How did it do that? And as he looks further, he sees many sheep at one place, and not just sheep but other farm animals as well. There are chicken and pigs too. And there are so many of them, and Rice's mission is to get at least 50 of them, and he recognizes that he has to find a method of doing it because just force here isn't gonna help him. So he uses Chef's Eye to see some more information about some of these animals so that he can address their needs in a better way, and maybe in that way figure out how to bring them back home. Pigs seem to be really hungry and he can lure them with food. This gives our protagonist an idea, so he immediately gets the cooking work started, first looking through the food items he could use. But he needs to think of a recipe that farm animals would like. And if my guy played Minecraft, he would know how to lure these animals, but I guess he didn't, so he has to figure it out on his own now, bros. He comes across the arugula that he picked up when he was on that quest with the stone giant golem, and he needs to find some other ingredients that would go well with arugula. Arugula has got all the nutrients and health benefits that one would want, but if it is to come out tasty, then it needs to be mixed with something else. So he then prepares a topping with garlic, onions and tomatoes, and then he mixes all of it together in a saucepan. Rice seems really deep into cooking and is really focused and dedicated. After he finished the first part, he then goes on to making dough. The game makes things a bit easier when cooking as he doesn't have to follow all the little rules regarding cooking it. He then starts spinning the dough on his hand, making it stretch out really long until it was so big that it attracted the attention of the animals nearby, now just staring at him and his spinning dough. And as it expanded, a fresh idea comes to his mind that he should use this opportunity and make a pizza instead, as if my bro is trying to lure me and not these farm animals with this food. So after he finished with the dough, he decides to put the seasoning he prepared earlier on the top of the dough and then uses his fire skill to bake it as there was no oven around. And after some time baking it, the pizza is finally done and it looks amazing and absolutely huge. Farm animals seeing it start gathering and are more than pleased as they make sounds in approval of it, and his plan is to use this delicious looking pizza to lure all the farm animals, or at least 50 of them, back to the farm and hand it over there, as that's his new co-op quest. He gets a warning notification telling him that he shouldn't be feeding these animals with pizza, but as he's too excited about managing to make this enormous pizza, he completely disregards the warning. Now a bit later, we see two soldiers, with one of them waking up the other and telling him if he can also see something in the distance approaching them. And as it gets closer, we see our protagonist running for his life in front of the farm animals, speeding right behind him, looking slightly mental. The two soldiers recognize Rice and open the door to the city, and Rice shouts from a distance that it's the lost livestock. And so many different types of animals are running towards them, the soldiers are not sure what to do, as there are even little tough looking cows charging at them. And then all of a sudden they hear somebody from the back telling them to get away, and right in front of them, Aether and Macho King jump out to help our protagonist, throwing their explosive attacks. The timing was impeccable for Aether and Macho King to show up exactly when Rice needed them. It's perfect, and our protagonist tells them that they just need to get the animals into the cage and they'll complete the quest. But before that, they need to make sure that they've got exactly 50 livestock. So they start counting, and they count exactly 50 animals, which is perfect for them. A bit later, we see the restaurant owner bawling his eyes out from happiness of having his livestock returned to him. So now with these animals, he can finally expand on his menu and offer better food and make his restaurant attractive again. And the status window shows that they've completed their quest, and at that moment, we see some locals coming along congratulating congratulating the restaurant owner for having his livestock returned to him. And one of them asks Macho King about his wood chopping skills, as he's the one that cut down the wood of peace. Another guy asks Aether about his architecture methods, as he was the one that built the fence. So both of them go on their own quests, thanking our protagonist as they were leaving. Finishing this quest opened doors for the other quest for them, and so it's all thanks to Rice. And as our protagonist was entertaining Meow for a bit, the restaurant owner asks Rice if he could help him expand his menu offer, as he only knows how to make one type of meat meal. And this opens a new cooking quest for our protagonist. Meanwhile, we see a guy making chicken skewers over a fire, and the couple says that it's taking too long for it to be done, and the guy making the food reassures them that it'll be finished very soon if they can just wait a little bit longer. Then the couple starts talking about Rice, praising him, where they say that his food is so much better than any other food available out there. Hearing this conversation makes this cook here pretty annoyed, as it seems that our protagonist is overtaking all of the cook's jobs in this game and there's not much space for them. And as soon as the cook prepared the chicken skewers, the couple, leaving, say that they'll take their refund as they won't eat there anymore. The cook tries to convince them that his skewers are pretty delicious, but the couple is determined to give up from it no matter what he says. And as the customers rush away from him, the cook becomes even more furious at Rice, thinking to himself that he doesn't understand why these people keep talking about our protagonist in both reality and in the game. He's so fed up with it, and I mean, who wouldn't be? Because if it continues with this pace, soon he won't have any customers approaching him, as they'll all go to Rice. And back with our protagonist, Rice made some juicy looking soybean paste stew and stir-fried chicken as a display of what the chef Moit can make for his new restaurant and menu. The food looks absolutely amazing as usual, and the chef Moit can't take his eyes off of it. Rice tells him that he believes that this menu will be very popular and it'll attract attention from many. As the chef wasn't familiar with the food, our protagonist tells him a pro tip of how he can get most out of the food in front of him. He can basically eat the stew with rice, which will make it even more delicious than if he eats separately. And the chef Moit, now trying this new way, just can't believe how good